Hey guys, what is up? Public here, back with another video, and today we're going over the Rookery as a Shadow Priest for Season 2. It's going to be kind of similar to what I did for my Vexy guide for Liberation of Undermine, or kind of my walkthrough. This is a very early key. I think we did this week 1 of the season. I did not have 4 set, but I think I want to just kind of go through this dungeon, kind of talk about like why I made certain decisions, kind of helpful things to point out if this is your first time doing Rookery as a Shadow Priest, or it's just something you're looking to improve a little bit. So hopefully this isn't too long or too crazy. I'm going to go ahead and hit play on this VOD here. So I decided to play Voidweaver on this dungeon primarily because it was early on. It didn't have tier yet, so Archon wasn't quite popping off yet. And the last boss in this dungeon is really, really strong for Voidweaver. The first thing that I want to note, though, in this pull, though, if I go back just a little bit, is this frontal. This is the thing that's going to kill you the most often because it's super hard to see. In this very first pull, we're usually, pull everything. The kind of mini boss here does this really hard to see frontal ability. You can kind of see this purple shadowy cone here. That guy shoots out those orbs really quickly, and that will one-shot you. So make sure you keep an eye on that. That's the most important thing in this pull. That will for sure kill you. But yeah, so like I said, I decided to play Voidweaver in this dungeon. The last boss has a shield effect, and it also has a damage amp that happens quite often, both of which are very good for Voidweaver. Voidweaver can do its kind of short burst windows. Archon's more like longer burst. And obviously Voidweaver gets the shield break talent Devour Matter, which really helps get that shield down quicker than it otherwise would. The boss damage you get in this dungeon is pretty great. These bosses are not the most melee friendly in the dungeon pool. So, I was definitely helping out my group there, being running with 2 other melee. Moving on to the kind of first room area. This is a pretty simple area. There's not a whole lot going on here. The one thing that I will call out to keep in mind is these dispels here. I think there's a couple of these mobs that have this. Usually good. I don't know if I even did it in this dungeon. If you're paying attention, this is a nice little use case of mass dispel as the pull is being gathered up, just to help out with damage done in this fight. I think it looks like the shamans just insta-purged it single. I probably should have helped there, but that's okay. Ultimately here, your goal, and this is true with most dungeons that you're going to see me here, is like, if I have my cooldowns, I'm pressing them. Like, my goal is to full send everything. I will hardly hold as much as I can. I don't like doing that. Obviously, dotting things is important. You can see there, I didn't have everything dotted on the start of the pull. That's okay. Sometimes you just kind of have to send your burst. When you're outside of cooldowns, it's okay to then start, filling in with Vampiric Touch here and there. But again, mostly there just trying to get my stuff out on cooldown and get through this AoE damage. Be very careful when these storms are going off. Press your fade, press Desperate Prayer, health pot if you get low. Gets a little spooky here. Like I said, this is week 1, so this is kind of like what I would consider kind of like a progression key. If we were to do this now with like the gear that we have at this point, or we all have 4 set, it'd go a lot faster, but these pulls are living quite a bit longer, so which is totally normal. That's totally fine. In here, I'm primarily focusing these Void Riders. They have the most health, and they are the most deadly. And for the most part, that's going to be true for a lot of what we're doing. And you can see here, this is one small tip. If you're playing with Resto Shaman or Druid or something like that, be sure to stay in their healing range. Really helps them out. Otherwise, there's not a whole lot to say on these packs. You're, again, just trying to full send as much as you possibly can. If we skip forward here, you can see we're just still pulling most of these packs together. This is one point I'll bring up. I've talked about this quite a lot. So in this pull here, I've communicated with my tank, and we're in voice here, which is really beneficial, that he's going to pull this pack into this one. Now, because of that, I know I have a bit more time to dot things up. So I'm immediately trying to position myself so that I'm in range of everything. And you'll see here, I'm going to go ahead and press fade to make sure I don't take aggro from the tank, and then I'm going to go ahead and start dotting. Now, what you dot here doesn't really matter. I like to dot what's going into the pack more than anything. And again, that's just kind of waiting for Shadow Crash to hit, and then we're just going to kind of full send. Now, this is going to be kind of an awkward one. I only have Void Torrent. I did desync it with Dark Ascension a little bit. That's okay. Nothing's going to be perfect here. We just want to make sure that we have damage when we have it. Could have saved it for the entire time, but usually not worth to save too much. I think in this case we might have been able to do it, but again, you're kind of concerned with the pack have lived that long if I would have held. So I went ahead and sent Dark Ascension here anyway. This is, again, it's not optimal. I probably could have held in general, but I wasn't quite sure if I would get everything. And then here I know I just can just send the Void Torrent. I'm assuming I press it. Or maybe I just full send. Yeah, you just press it. Just get the pack dead, man. That's my goal here. Not the most optimal thing in the world, but that's okay. And then this last pack again here, should have mass dispelled. Oh, I did there. Nice. I mass dispelled. I knew what I was doing. Definitely not playing perfectly. But here I know, even though I messed up my cooldown sequence in the pack before, or wasn't optimal, what I'm going to end up doing here, I have Void Torrent in 5 seconds. I'm pretty sure I just send this. And again, that's the mantra. You're playing Voidweaver or Archon, doesn't really matter. Send your stuff when you get it. I think at this point the pack was dead enough, and I was just like, you know what? Screw it. I'll just hold for boss. These guys were clearly blasting this pull. I don't need to pepper it with just one small little Void Torrent. And usually in my groups this is true, and I kind of index more towards boss damage for that reason, because I know that a lot of specs struggle with boss damage or picking between AoE versus single target talents. Shadow is one of the best specs at getting a lot of single target for free here. And so use that to your advantage, right? Make sure the group is helping out in single target. I believe we're going to pull this pack with the boss. Yep. Oh, yeah. Big damage. Now, this gets a little spicy if you end up doing this, and you'll see us kind of mess this up in a second, where the Storm Rook here remains alive when the boss goes into the intermission. And it's really awkward because that mob just doesn't move. So I am cleaving off the boss here, just because, trying to get efficient damage out. And if I'll pause this real quick, and if we zoom kind of forward, once the boss phases, you can see the Storm Rook is still alive. So that part kind of sucks as we go into this intermission here. I'm still just relying on Psychic Link just to do my dirty work for me, so I can just focus on dodging the beams, and then hopefully things will die. After we've done this a couple of times, we've realized that, hey, it actually makes more sense for me to swap to the Storm Rook at this point, because the boss will typically outrange you at this point, and it gets really awkward because now my Psychic Link is not hitting that mob anymore. So yeah, not the best in the world, and you can see this is the awkward part of using Void Torrent when I did. But hey, guess what? Absolutely blasting. This is what I was saying, prioritize your boss damage here. Not a great melee fight for sure. And this is one of those cases where we need to kind of pull through to make sure we get this guy dotted. So at this point, I re-dot him. I'm not really caring about the group's damage. Probably should. Gets into death range though, and I will start kind of deathing it just to get that extra insanity, and then we bring that in and we finally kill it. Otherwise, this boss is going to be pretty straightforward. You want to kind of spread as much as you can while being respectful of the healer's range here, just to give melee some space. And then during this phase, we found that it's better, start in the kind of center here. So line yourself up between one of these two lightning orbs, stack kind of in the center. And then if you can, try to move as a group in one direction or the other. If you lead the melee too much, you're going to kind of screw them over. So you kind of want to move as a group. You can see the Shaman's kind of leading us a bit too much there. Our tank ended up dying because he's silly. Don't worry, we'll res him, I think, for sure. Nice little pro res from someone. Hopefully the Death Knight. Oh, heck yeah. There we go. He's saved. But that's really it for this group, or for this boss, sorry. We'll go ahead and kind of skip forward here. Down we go. If you didn't know, after this boss, you get these kind of feathers when you jump down. If you hit onto one of these chained Storm Rooks, you get this buff here for 5 minutes. It does a very minuscule amount of damage, but, it is something. So try to land on one of these guys with that circle. I try to get down here as soon as I can. Generally speaking, we've changed what we've done a couple of times in terms of route here, and I'm not quite sure what the common pug route is. I go ahead and try to Mind Soothe as much as I can. I'm getting down here early, usually waiting for people to get down here, so you might as well just do something. So I end up just Mind Soothing stuff because I'm not sure what the tank wants to do, since it can take a couple casts of Mind Soothe just to get everything off here. I don't remember in this dungeon what we decided to do. If we Mind Soothe, sometimes we pull this into the next pack, sometimes we just outright skip the whole thing. Looks like we opted to pull it in this run, which is fine. Now again here, I know I'm just going to have a Dark Ascension moment here. Actually, it looks like I do have tier here. I lied. I totally lied. I do have some tier. I must have got it super early. End of week 1 maybe. So, yeah, this is just, again, a big pull. Melee, again, has a really hard time with this pack. You're kind of really not fun as a melee pull, so try to make sure you give them space here, and you're dodging things as much as you can. This stuff doesn't hit super hard, but it can be kind of annoying to move, as you can see here. So just do your best and try to focus down. The diffusers here is generally where I try to focus my time, effort, and damage. For the most part, nothing too big here. You do kind of, again, communication is really important here because there's usually going to be a big pull coming up. And again, this is very group dependent, but I know my group and I know what they usually like to do here. So I now have Power Infusion ready. I'm going to hold on to it at least for this Dark Ascension. And the question is, do I send Power Infusion on this pack? I think we usually pull one more into this, so it's a 4-pack. Or am I going to start holding stuff for what I know is going to come up next? Now again, this is where I've communicated with my group. I know what's happening. So I went ahead and held Dark Ascension and I held Power Infusion. Now, sometimes it's just important to just go ahead and send that there. You can see this actually lived for quite a long time. This lived for just about a minute. So I should have sent Dark Ascension there. It probably would have been fine. But again, I knew that we were about to pull big and I was being conservative. So in hindsight, should have sent just at least the Dark Ascension because I sat on this for quite a while. But I knew going into this room, we were going to do this, which is a very, very tough pack. We're pulling all of this and the guys at the end there, slowly but surely. And I knew I wanted everything for this because we were also going to lust it. So this is, again, it's one of those things where sometimes it's okay to hold if you know you're going to do it for a really good reason. And in particular, again, running with double melee, this pack is hard for melee to get good uptime in. So the faster this stuff dies, the easier the whole group is going to have. So yeah, you can see we full blasted. This did really well. And again, this is where group communication is key. If I didn't know that and I full sent on the pack before, I would not have had Power Infusion for this. And that could have made this potentially lethal. So communication, really important with your group. Okay, next up we have this lovely boss here. Again, I will say on these guys, it's usually just better just to build up resources on this and not try to spend here. So you can see I started the fight with 100 insanity, just nice little extra boss damage here. Be very cognizant of where you're standing on this boss. I know as like a ranged DPS, you are like trying to like stand a max range because melee are scary. I get it, but it's really important to kind of almost play as a melee here and just do your best to dodge. I know it's a little tough here. Getting the rhythm down is going to be important, but you don't want to bait some mechanic way out into the ether. So try to stack with the melee here as much as you can, and then be cognizant of when you're passing the ball back and forth. We really don't have a way to cheese this at all. And you see how this bait weak aura, which is just part of the Kazi's Mythic Plus Dungeon Pack weak aura. If you don't have it, I highly suggest getting it. It gives you this bait timer, which is usually right about this Crushed Reality guy. And that's what we're worried about. We don't want to send that into the middle of the room and have like a giant crap circle that just makes everything else harder. Especially, this boss can live quite a long time. Again, melee uptime really sucks here. They have like, it really sucks here. So they can have a hard time doing good damage, especially if they're kind of newer to the fight. Otherwise, we're just kind of cutting around the room. No big deal here. I'll kind of skip forward. This boss gets pretty repetitive. Just has a lot of health. Okay, after that boss, you're just pulling this 3-pack here. Again, you want to communicate with your group what's going to happen. I know after doing this dungeon for a couple times that we're going to pull pretty big after this. And that first pull in the downstairs area is pretty meaty. So I opted in this case, since I didn't have everything up to the very start of the pull, I just used Void Torrent here. And I saved Dark Ascension and I saved Power Infusion. Again, up to you and your group. This is a good thing to communicate. I knew that my Unholy Death Knight was going to blast here. So it's okay not to oversend at this point. Let him kill the pack, and I'm kind of holding for the next one, right? This is why, communication is really helpful, because if we were to all burn this, we'd be wasting cooldowns, right? Which we don't want to do. So when we get down here, this pull is really hard as a Shadow Priest because there's just a lot of targets, and it can be easy to get really overwhelmed here. The thing you got to understand is that Shadow is not here to kill these civilian mobs. So as it's being gathered up, I'm being kind of loosey-goosey with Vampiric Touch, just getting a couple of these out there just for the tiny gains that I'm getting from Auspicious Spirits or whatever else. But really, you're trying to focus dotting the big guys. And once you get the big guys dotted, get your Entropic Rift out as soon as possible. It's not the prettiest, and then once I get my Void Blast out and rolling, I know I need to redot to get the priority targets rolling. Again, not the cleanest there, but I wanted to make sure I got my stuff on cooldown as soon as possible because I'm trying to get 2 casts of Power Infusion off before we actually get to the boss, and to make sure we have PI up for the boss fight, at least that first burn there. So I opted to kind of do like not fully optimal there, just to make sure we got things on cooldown quickly. Ideally, you would dot the really important things as it's being grouped up, but it's going to be tough on that pack. Usually the tank is moving quickly, so sometimes I only get one off or two off, and then I have to fix the last one after that. After this guy, like I said, there's actually quite a lot of trash here. I know it, like, you're on the boss platform, it can be kind of misleading, but you do kind of want to just YOLO your cooldowns here a little bit because you have a lot of time here. So timing works out pretty well here for this next pull. Same exact thing. I know what my tank is doing. He's going to pull these civilians into this next pack. I go ahead and start dotting with him. Again, I've pressed fade to make sure I don't go crazy with aggro. And again, I'm laser focusing, trying to get the big mobs here, or at least get as many of them dotted as I can. And then we're going to do a Dark Ascension Void Torrent burn here. I got super lucky. I got 2 tier set procs and the free one Dark Ascension. I basically got PI for free here. That's awesome. Totally lucked out here. This is the fun part of the tier set. Melee DPS died. Get wrecked, I guess. He's still doing lots of damage. He's literally dead. Unholy is fun. So yeah, and then, like I said here, because of timing, I know that I'm going to get one more cast of Power Infusion before the boss is out. So again, just trying to send here. This next pack, we're going to slow roll it a little bit. Let's see, I'll zoom forward here. So same kind of thing. This is a big one. What I know we're going to do, and so I can plan around it, we're going to pull this together until all the civilians die. And then once we get the Void Ascendant low, then we chain it. And so I know that's going to happen. So because of that, I know the chain's going to be pretty huge. At this point, I'm pretty much just holding. I'm doing whatever I can to get this Ascendant down, because I know everyone else is going to cleave the crap out of the civilians and get those down quickly. And at this point, I'm really just banking up resources and getting ready for this next pull, because I know it's going to be a doozy. Now, depending on the confidence of your tank, he might not chain this. It can be kind of hard. Usually once you get this Ascendant low enough, it's okay. You're mitigating the risk. But we had the affix buff. We knew we had this. At this point, full blasting again. I am opting here to hold my Spy Masters at this point, because I know I'm not going to get full stacks up before the boss. If you're still playing as Spy Masters. Still a really good dungeon trinket, by the way, until you get some new stuff from Mythic Raid. Did use the fact that I had Unfurling Darkness available to help redot within the pack, which is totally fine. Casting Unfurling Darkness during the pull while Wrist is active is okay, if you have no Void Blast to press. At this point, we're kind of just chilling. We're going to get the second cast of Void Torrent off here. And this pack shouldn't live too much longer. I'll kind of skip ahead. We have one more pull to do. Now, again, it's okay to not have full cooldowns when you actually start the boss. So you can see here, this is the pack right before the boss. I went ahead and sent Dark Ascension. One, this pack will typically live a minute anyways, assuming it's like a progression key. And two, the boss has a damage amp, and you want all of your cooldowns for the damage amp. If you full send at the start of the fight, you're going to be missing out on damage. So I knew that. I have plenty of time to press Dark Ascension there. And again, we're waiting on Power Infusion anyway. So we went ahead and just kind of full sent that. Let's get forward here. Again, pretty straightforward. Go over to the boss. Just live for quite a long time. Okay, so for this boss, it's really important that you guys spread out as much as you can. We generally have the healer stand in the middle with someone. Whoever can self-sustain themselves the most will be on the right side by themselves. And then the tank goes with usually a melee on the left side is what we do here. As a Shadow Priest, you can kind of go wherever. You have enough self-sustain healing. You can dispel yourself if you're running Mass Dispel as needed. But just try to hug the middle wherever you can to make sure you're in range of the healer. Otherwise, it could be lethal. All right, so this is, again, one of the best reasons why I like to play Voidweaver in this dungeon is because of this boss. This is one of my favorite dungeons for Voidweaver for that reason. You can see the boss Yin Yang's operates between having a shield and a damage amp. This is Voidweaver's favorite part of the fight. So at this point, I always just send Void Torrent here, because almost always this is going to last at least 30 seconds. And at this point, you are just Void Blasting and Shadow Word Deathing the crap out of this boss. Be a little careful with your health pool, but that's your goal here. Again, I'm assigned the right side here, so I'm always going to get this right pillar. And you see Shadow Word Death is just cranking here. Death Speaker is awesome, getting those extra procs here. And we got this damage amp within just about 30-35 seconds, which is pretty solid. And this is just me Shadow Word Deathing. At this point, we know we're getting the damage amp. I have this little handy timer here from the weak ores, and you're just full blasting. Spy Master's Potion, Void Blast the crap out of this boss, full setting Devouring Plagues. I am playing Mind's Eye here, and you're just, I mean, look at it's just cranking. Spy Master's diff. And you can see the boss's health is getting absolutely annihilated. We're getting to 38% on that first burn. And then we're right back to where we were. We're just here sending your Shadow or Deaths, having a great old time. Now, at this point, you can kind of choose, do you want to hold Void Torrent or not? Generally speaking, I'm kind of working my cooldowns around the rest of people in my group at this point because I know I don't have Dark Ascension. Void Torrent's a pretty short cooldown. I'll probably get it at the end of the next burn. I opted to go ahead and send it to make sure that we phase through the shield phase quickly. That way we don't get too many dispels. We don't have to go through too many of those pillars just to get the boss down quicker. And we see the damage amp is coming here. I am missing a couple. Like, I don't get to like pre-ramp as much as I usually like to. But you see there, it worked out pretty well. Still have the Void Torrent, all good. And we're just kind of sending our Void Blast here. So again, this is why I love Voidweaver on this fight. It's just made for Voidweaver here. Also, it's super helpful getting into this execute range. So in this case, the boss is going to die here, I think. Oh, okay. So this is perfect. Or not perfect. Ideally, we would have killed the boss, right? That would have been great. But in the case where you know you're not going to kill the boss, it's extra important to get him below 20%, and then you'll be able to phase even quicker. Because he's below 20% base health with this shield, Shadow or Death counts as the reset from Death and Madness at this point because it's below 20%. So at this point, I'm getting double Shadow or Deaths every time it comes off cooldown. So you're able to break the shield quite quickly. Again, at this point, I know when we break the shield, the boss is not going to live very long. It's going to die in like a second. So at this point, full send everything that you have when you get it because the burn is not going to last that long. We know he only has 4% health. And you can see here that burn was very quick. Thanks Shadow or Death. So yeah, that is Shadow Priest, Voidweaver, and a +10 Rookery. Again, this was week 1. Definitely could be better. I think it was week 1. Something like that. It was pretty early on in the season. I did have 4-piece. I know I said at the beginning I didn't. I just wasn't paying attention. Wasn't the most optimized gear for sure. But early on, you take what you can get. So hopefully this was helpful, kind of going through my thought process in this key. If you want to see more videos like this, let me know in the comments down below. If there's something you want me to cover in the next videos that I do, also let me know. I just kind of full YOLO'd this, so hopefully this was helpful. And we'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much to everyone that supports me, all the YouTube members that get the videos a day early. Really helps support me out. Appreciate it, guys. See you in the next one.